Hi, my name is Roslyn. I'm a reference librarian for the Chicago Public Library. I work in the Special Collection Division at the Harold Washington Library Center, located on the 9th floor. Here in Special Collections, we collect, preserve, and archive historical documents, primarily Chicago history. What's really fascinating about archives is that it allows you the opportunity to time travel. You get to come to a space, look at something from a time period that you yourself weren't a part of, and that's really, really cool to do. You can look at photographs, trade catalogs, neighborhoods as how they used to look before you were there, and it's a really, really nice concept. I'm here today, obviously, to talk about the One Book, One Chicago selection, Exit West. As I was reading this book, I was surprised at how the author was able to capture memories and relationships to memories and how that kind of developed and introduced us to these characters and the turmoils that they were going through. And that's really easy way that make that easy connection with archives, right? We do the very same thing. We allow individuals to come into our space and time travel. Yeah, so working in archives is really, really cool, obviously, because I have access to all these historical items and documents that would allow me to kind of zoom back into the past. When my father first moved here to Chicago, he lived in an area called West Garfield Park. And he often said that Garfield Park was his park, right? Like he could look outside of his apartment window and could see the park. For many, many years, my father would kind of talk about what that neighborhood looked like before the riots and after the riots. And oddly enough, it wasn't until I started working in archives that I started to make that connection that my father was essentially walking history, and what he was demonstrating and sharing with us as a family was oral traditions. And I often advocate for my father that he should be writing these down and documenting it and potentially archiving it for future generations to be able to listen to him and obtain some of that wisdom and knowledge that he has, that first person perspectives. And he often brushes that away and brushes it aside, and he kind of feels like what he's experienced and what he's seen isn't necessarily historic and relevant to that of an archival collection. Which brings me to this panel that I went to many, many years ago, and they talked about archives being memories keepers, or gatekeepers to memories. And I thought that was a really, really interesting concept, because our memories are essentially things that have been archived within ourselves. The same thing with something we might eat. A taste or a smell can instantly make us remember an individual, and that essentially is the same thing that we do here in special collections and in archives. So my father lived in West Garfield Park, and when he, grew up or whatever and decided to get married and have a family, him and my mother purchased a home in Humboldt Park. Yet we still traveled back and forth to West Garfield Park, perhaps for nostalgic reasons. My dad really loved that park. When I started working in special collections, I was surprised, and also I instantly made that connection to our West Garfield Park archival collection, just because it was something that I grew up seeing. The park, the bandstand, it was something that had that memory that I was able to go back to and have that visual concept of it. Today, we will quickly explore two of those themes: migration and ownership patterns, using the example of Mr. Eddie Johnson. Eddie Johnson worked on a railroad in Memphis, Tennessee, circa 1910, before moving to Chicago to embark on his career as an entrepreneur. Once here, he opened Johnson's Hat Shop, a family hat cleaning business located around Lake and Damon. Under his management, the business was able to survive the devastations of the Great Depression. Bethel New Life is a nonprofit community development corporation and social service organization located in the West Garfield Park community. In 1983, they successfully applied for an Illinois Humanities Grant to involve the Black community of Chicago's West Side in recovering the recent history of the area. Using our Chicago Park District records and other collections like the Bethel New Life Records, as well as many of the databases the Chicago Public Library subscribes to, have helped us gather a sense of what Eddie Johnson saw and experienced during his time in Chicago. To learn more about these and other records kept in our special collections, please visit our webpage to schedule a visit, as we are currently available by appointment only. See you soon.